Hi everyone. So the last module that I want to touch today is the export controls, the export licensing. Again, after you set up in the SPRO in the back end for the type of legislation and the type of regulation that you want to set the configuration up, excuse me. Then in the front end, much like SPL, you want to do a couple more configuration settings in order to set up the licenses correctly. And so a little bit of background of an export licensing. There's two main U.S. licensing jurisdictions, which is the EAR, Export Administration Regulation, and the ITAR. Now, in our system, we have both of them loaded. And so an EAR license can be determined by country, by value, by number of products that you can ship, and you can do all that configuration in here. Right? And you can also, for example, say no license required for certain areas. Now, in our system, we only have NLR, but I will set up another license to show you the different types of things and the materials and the values and all that you can set up, right? Now, the first thing we want to go ahead is legal control. Here is your basic menu. You have display block documents, block payments, export licensing, maintain export licensing, and anything pertaining to this. This is going to look very similar to what we saw before in SPL in terms of the displayed block documents, although it's going to go into a little bit more detail because it's going to tell you, what the license issues are. Okay. Now, in the case of the first thing is we want to see what licenses. So you go into your client system and you want to see what licenses they have set up right now. So you go into this menu, display existing export licenses. Say, for example, the EAR. You run it open because our system there's only 3. Now, in this case, we only have 3. EAR 99, we have it as a dummy license and the license number, the license type, right? It's been set up, who it's set up, the validity date, when they were set up as well. Now, NLR, no license required. It's pretty straightforward. When you create the license, let me just go ahead and record that number, 200,001. We go into our next maintain export licenses, we're going to be able to see that one. Not that one. No license required. Right. And here it is. So it's telling us it's active. Actually, it's expired. Even though it's valid, it was expired 1 day later. So, what type of control class is. In this case, it's going to be AR99 because it's an NLR. What the country departure is. So, in cases of NLR, you're probably going to have the vast majority of countries, apart from your embargoed countries or your high-risk countries like Iran, South Sudan, and countries along those lines. And this is a little bit of administration, just shows you a little bit more. And this is text that you can have internal notes or anything along those lines that you want to add. Right, so again, the NLR license is pretty straightforward. There's not much more to see here. Just make sure they're set up correctly. The other type of license that you can do is, in this case, because we don't have any, I'm going to mock create one. So you go into create export licenses. You don't want to do an NLR. You want to do individual license. And what the system allows you to do, however, is because a lot of these licenses are renewed on a fairly regular basis, you can go ahead and get your old license, say it's 200,049.50, and then copy and paste. So you, for example, have the same countries or the same products. It's also a big one, or the same values, because you're renewing them every year. But in this case, we're going to have to create one from scratch. So we go ahead and launch it. And so we create an external number. We would call it test 1. We would introduce the date, so let's just say from today, because we're doing a test, all the way through the end of the month, or the end of the year in this case. And so in the status, you go ahead and say active. Foreign trade organization, you can add here, and you can set NFTO that you want to control in this case, but in this case we don't want to. For example, this is where it gets interesting. For example, a lot of these EAR licenses are determined by their value. You can ship $500,000 worth of X amount of product to Cuba. So you go ahead and just insert that, hit enter. Oh, sorry, you enter the currency, of course. So in our case, we go with USD, United States dollar. And so we're going with 50,000, and there. And this license will, let me actually save this. This license is assigned to, in this case, it's going to be 200,000, well, 200050. Once a shipment is assigned to this license, the max value is going to go depreciating slowly until it hits that, or if it's exceeded, if it exceeds it, sorry. The next is your control class. This is basically your what you want to control in terms of the EAR. So, I mean, let's go with aerospace propulsion, category 9. So it's going to be this one, right? Description you don't need to, and you can just go ahead and save. Oh, and it will load the description itself. So now we have the classification, the country. So we want to control it to, well, my favorite country to always do this is Spain. Where is Spain? There we go. We go ahead and save it, and there we go. And then finally the partner. So whoever you're using this license for. Business partner, external business partner number. Let's go ahead and run this open, see if I can just go ahead and select one. This German will do, and we go ahead and save. So it's basically saying if a shipment going from this partner through this country, through this classification, the license will be okay as long as it doesn't exceed this $50,000. $10,000, $5,000, $49,999 technically would be allowed. So we go ahead and save it, and so now we have this license successfully saved. And we can just go ahead and look at the information there and save it. And there it is, active, but the value hasn't been exceeded because there's been no shipments going to it, the country departure, the partner that you have, and the text and all that. Okay, so once this license has been assigned, this is going to be this information will be filled out basically once the shipments are going through. Okay, now that is what we consider. Remember when we were seeing the SPLs, we saw that there was some front-end configuration. This would be the equivalent on that side. You have to set up these export licenses before you can actually correctly send the shipment, right? So once you have that, your next part is much like an SPL. You can go ahead and release block documents. You can just display the block documents. You always want to display first, just in case. And so again, we run this wide open, and what we have here is, well, this is your Leo control, and as you can see, everything is red, I believe, simply because there's probably those 3 NLR licenses that we saw are probably not active, so that's why it's stopping everything. Even though, yeah, I mean, even shipments to, for example, like Germany, Cuba definitely will have some issues, but France, Great Britain, here we're seeing some more issues, right? So if we go ahead and see one of these block documents, here, this is going to be more informative than what we saw in SPL. Once you have to go into the business partner and see, you can't, the display blocked document in the SPL won't show you the details that you need to know. It just tell you that it's SPL blocked. So here you definitely get to see a little bit more. So this is telling us that SPL has gone through, embargo check has gone through, but there's some legal control issues. The ITAR goes through, actually, which is the other type of licensing. There's no legal control there. But here we have, it can't determine, basically, check import export licenses NLR because they are probably all 3 out of date or not active or deactivated. Even though it's going to country AE, it's going to block it because even though it's saying there's no country, there's no licensing, there's no NLR license that's letting me ship this. Now remember one thing about the EAR in general. This is more on the core side. The EAR, unlike other jurisdictions with export controls, when you apply for even if it's an EAR 99 product, once a no license required in NLR is actually a license. It's a little bit of an oxymoron, but that's the way the EAR works. So you technically state that you have the license NLR, no license required. So the system works in that way, in the sense that even though it knows that it's not an embargo country, it's telling you that there's no active NLR right now, so it can't release the shipment. Okay. If you were to set up the license, you have to go ahead and set it up correctly, and so then it would allow you. So again, here much like what we were seeing before. Oh, huh, interesting. Back here. Not really. Hmm, interesting. Um, oh, I guess I mean that would be it. You know, your display of your documents, display of payments, your export licensing, and where you maintain them. So I think that would be it for this one. This one's a little quicker than the rest, but you know, if you have any questions, please let me know. We can run through this on a more detailed level. Again, we only have 3 licenses set up in our system right now, so it's a little hard to try and say, you know, release, assign release, and things like along those lines. But this will be your, you know, your basic menu. Okay. All right. Thank you, and